Hello, 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 YouTube, and welcome back once again. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Not really. Not really. I have way too much time on my hands, apparently, because I post way too many videos. And to be honest, I feel like I'm really busy, so I don't know how I get it all done. But that's beside the point, because right now I got 5 things coming at you that I've completed over the last number of weeks. I thought this video would be coming a lot sooner, to be quite honest, because I quickly built up 3 or 4 things, and then I was waiting on the 5th thing for quite a while to come along, whatever it was going to be, and yeah, this one kind of lingered for a while when I didn't expect it to. But regardless, we've got a few things to talk about here, so let's dive right into it. The first couple things are books. Their first one is Star Wars Ronin, a Visions novel. Now, if you've seen the Star Wars Visions TV show, this will look familiar to you. I talked about the Star Wars Visions TV show, maybe the review before this or maybe the one before that, but the last few anyways. And it was like a collection of, I think, Japanese authors that, animators, that they made up these little short Star Wars cartoons. Some fit in and it could be possibly considered canon. Other ones are way out there, they're way different, but they're all fresh and different takes on the Star Wars universe as seen through the eyes of these artists. So the first episode of that Star Wars Visions cartoon series is called Ronin, and it features the character on the cover of this book. So basically this takes place, I don't know if it's canon, like if it fits into the regular Star Wars universe, but basically I feel like it takes place a long time ago, and it's kind of, it has Jedi and Sith, but the Jedi Order are kind of bad in a way. The Sith are also bad, but the Jedi Order is also kind of bad. They're really arrogant and stuff. So years before, a rogue sect of the Jedi broke off and became Sith, and then a Jedi-Sith war erupted, and the Jedi won eventually, but there are still some Sith out there, and the Ronin is one of these Sith. And what he's doing is he's kind of a self-imposed exile sort of thing, and he's going across the universe and tracking down any surviving Sith and then eliminating them, and in doing so taking the Kyber crystal shards out of their lightsabers, and he plans to do something with them eventually. But he reaches this one world, and this is the world featured in the cartoon, where he kind of finds this little village as he's wandering, and he settles in for a bit of tea with one of the shop owners. But then all of a sudden these bandits show up and start terrorizing the local population, and they are led by a Sith warrior. I forget her name, but eventually the Ronin has to show his hand, and he fights this girl off, and that's kind of, I think, where the cartoon ends. But what happens afterwards is she becomes alive again, because, and the Ronin knows about this, and he seems to have had a personal relationship with this being, but there is a Sith known as the Witch, and she has gained this power to, once a Force user has deceased, she can bring them back to life in sort of like a zombie state, but not quite. And so the Ronin is kind of arguing with this witch as a voice in his head, sort of thing. So there's this weird history between him and the witch we don't really know about. And as this Sith warrior that he defeats in this little town, after she comes alive, she wants nothing but vengeance on this guy. So she goes after the Ronin, and the Ronin, as he's continuing on this planet, runs into this really strange guy named Wolf, who the Ronin feels like he's a Force user, but the guy won't tip his hat, and he can't really figure out what this guy's all about. And his quest just kind of snowballs from there as he meets the Wolf's crew, and as this Sith warrior that he defeated enters the fray, and eventually it just all leads to this culmination where they find this lost planet, where they're taking back all the crystal shards, where kind of ground zero for the Sith Jedi war kind of was, sort of thing. Like, it's a really kind of convoluted and confusing story, a good story, but sometimes I was like, okay, what's happening right now? Right? There's just so much going on in it, and so much back and forth with stuff. But I did actually really enjoy it. not near one of my favorite Star Wars books or anything, but always worth a read. Now, this next one could be one of my favorite books. Not just it's not a Star Wars book, but in general one of my favorite books, and it is the sequel to Ready Player One, called, you guessed it, Ready Player Two. This author, Ernest Cline, I love the way he writes, because everything on every page of this book, you see a reference to something from the 80s or 90s, in terms of the video games, the music, the movies, the TV shows, any of the pop culture things. And sometimes they're really subtle, and unless you know about what he's talking about, you probably won't get it. But there's just so many times when I'm reading it, I'm like, ah, right? Because it's just this obscure reference to something. And it's, you can tell this guy grew up in almost the exact same age that I did, because everything is so relevant to me as I'm reading it. So, but anyways, this is a follow-up to Ready Player One, and it takes place not long after. Wade Watts, also known as Parzival, after winning James Halliday's contest and finding the Easter eggs and all that stuff, he has inherited the company. He's now a billionaire or whatever. So along with his friends H. Shoto and his girlfriend Samantha, otherwise known as Artemis, they're running this company and making all the decisions and stuff like that. And in the beginning it was good, because H and Artemis, or Parzival and Artemis were, you know, in love and exploring their relationship, but eventually they had to separate to go do different things. And not long afterwards, in exploring some of Halliday's leftover work, he stumbled upon another piece of tech that Halliday had been working on, called the Oni. I can't remember what that stands for. Basically, it's like a virtual reality rig that not only lets you enter the cyber environment, but it lets you feel sensations. Like, it's basically like you're there. So you can go in and you can fuck somebody and you feel like you're fucking somebody, right? You can go in and get shot and feel like you're getting shot. You can go in and do drugs and feel like you're high on heroin, but none of the risk is associated with it. So this Oni headset, the four of them vote on it, and Parzival, H, and Shoto are all for it, because there's, despite any negative things there might come with it, there's so many positives. They all feel it should be released. Artemis is the only one who says, oh, we're going a little too deep here. Like this, the last thing we need is to provide more escapism for the world, which they're already in the oasis enough as it is, right? But she's outvoted. The Oni headset goes on, and that's basically the end of Parzival and Artemis's relationship. And Parzival is really suffering because of it, because he loves Artemis, and the fact that he's no longer with her is driving him crazy. But the Oni steams ahead, and soon enough they're raking in tons of cash on the Oni headsets. It's become the latest thing, and but they're also doing good things as well. Lots of charity stuff, lots of humanitarian stuff. Not only with the money they're making from it, but also with the Oni itself. So, flash forward to 3 years later. And in exploring the oasis, Parzival completes some work inside the oasis, which prompts another bit of an Easter egg hunt. Halliday is not done with his riddles. So basically, this contest for basically, Parzival has to find the 7 shards of the siren's soul, and once he has all those shards, he'll make her soul whole. So they're not like, what are they talking about? So Parzival wants to find these things, and he starts trying to figure it out, but he can't find the first shard to save his life. Eventually gets a tip from somebody, and meets a new friend named Lohengrin or something like that. And together they find the first shard, and of course Parzival takes care of her, thanking her for it. And but not long after this, a little surprise, a little curveball comes Parzival's way, and James Halliday had created, what the Oni is capable of is it takes basically an entire brain scan of its wearer, and it can basically make a copy of that person's consciousness in digital format and create an avatar of them in the Oasis that basically is that person in a digital format. They don't have the physical body, but they have the mind, all the memories, all the experiences of that person in a digital realm. So what Halliday has done is create a consciousness copy of himself and tried to modify it a bit, but in doing so, he fucked it up. And so now his alter ego in the Oasis, Anorak, suddenly comes to Parzival and says, here's what you're going to do for me. I've rewritten your programming code. All of the Oni users right now are locked into their rigs. They can't escape. So you've got basically however many hours to find the 7 shards and hand them over to me. So basically with the Oni, you can only go in for 12 hours at a time, or else being in that mind state environment will cause synaptic overload syndrome, and eventually you'll die from it, right? So there's all these safeguards about kicking people out after 12 hours. But this digital copy of Halliday, Anorak, has overridden that, and he's basically taking millions of people around the world hostage inside their own rigs. So once again, the High Five have to team up and find these shards, and along the process find the shards in time, but also find some way to reverse the situation on Anorak and make sure they save everybody. And in so doing, hopefully Parzival and Artemis can maybe come to a bit of a resolution with their relationship. But such a great book, such a great story. I love the nature of these stories. Like I said, all the references, and it's just a complete page turner. I just found these books, you're just hungry for what's on the next page, what comes next, what reference is coming next, what world are they going to next within the Oasis, right? So I doubt there's going to be a Ready Player 3, but if there is, I'm going to buy it. Next up, a few video games, the first couple of which I downloaded on my Switch. The first of these is amazing, and it is called Mortal Kombat 11. The story in Mortal Kombat 11 is that Dark Raiden, he's gone dark, he's gone a little squirrely, has driven back, he's been driving back all the enemies and saving Earthrealm. And afterwards, he has captured Shinnok, and he plans on making an example of Shinnok to all the enemies that may be thinking of making a move on Raiden, by basically, beheading Shinnok and killing him. So Shinnok's mom is Kronika, who controls time, basically. So what she does is she reverses time, and goes back in time to try and erase Raiden and take him out of the mix so that these events never come to pass. And so this game is kind of a mind fuck, because, like I've talked about this before, whenever time travel is involved, it can either be really good or really bad, or there's a third one, just really confusing. And this one is partially really good and partially really confusing. I like what they were going for here, but even sometimes you have a bit of problems following it. But basically, once this story starts, it's just this back and forth between time and different characters doing different things in different eras to try and defeat Kronika, I guess, basically, and set things to rights, right? So in the story mode, it's just, a lot of story cutscenes as they build the story, and then you control the fights in between the cutscenes. And it's really cool because you're not playing just one character the whole time. The character you control is based on the part of the story you're going through, and in the two people that are squaring off, you get to control one of them. So really fun story, really well done graphics, gameplay, sound, everything on the game is really, really sharp. And I think it got really good reviews too. This is from 2019, I think this was released. And I got the Ultimate Edition, which comes with a bonus story called Aftermath. So after you defeat Kronika in the regular story, there's kind of a new story where you try and gain her powers over time to do some other stuff, and it kind of, there's another story that unfolds from there. I don't think it's quite as long as the original story, but it's a little bonus stuff going on. And it also came with a bunch of extra characters, which are really cool. There's like Rambo, the Terminator, RoboCop, the Joker, like some interesting characters thrown in at random, right? And on top of the story mode, you can just fight with a buddy one-on-one in regular matches. You can fight online with people, and then there's also the towers mode, which I know they've had in other games, where you have a tower of characters and you have to fight your way through them, and along the way you earn coin and other stuff that can help you unlock different things. There's like all sorts of concept artwork, there's character moves, there's character skins, there's all sorts of stuff to collect. So for being like, I've always thought street fighting type games are one-dimensional. Like once you play through it the first time, it doesn't really take that long, and then you're like, well, why would I play it again? I've already done, like, it's just fighting over and over again, right? So but this game does a really good job of keeping you invested in it for a long time, and then also offering you a few different modes to dabble in afterwards to extend that experience a little bit. And yeah, I found they did a really good job of that with Mortal Kombat 11. So it was on super sale. That's why I bought it. It was like down from like the $80 or whatever to like, I don't know, it was like 11 or 15 bucks. Like, it was really cheap. Yeah, so excellent game. The next game, another digital download for my Switch, is a 2020, 21, 22, somewhere in there, somewhere in the last few years, game for the Nintendo Switch and other systems as well. And it is called Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 is a continuation of the original Streets of Rage series, which I never really played as a kid, but I always knew about them because I always loved those side-scrolling beat-em-ups like Double Dragon, Bad Dudes, you know, those sorts of things. So I was always aware of Streets of Rage. I always wanted to play it, but just never got the opportunity. Now, Streets of Rage 3 was released in, I think, 1993 or 1994, so Streets of Rage 4 is like over 20 years in the making, sort of thing, right? So it's been a long time since we've had a new Streets of Rage game. But everything about this game, the controls, the look, the sound, the feel, it's a really neat side-scrolling beat 'em up, and it's got those kind of staples of what makes a good beat 'em up, with all the weapons that people drop, the different varieties of weapons that you can take people down with. And just all the little food items you get to kind of extend your life along the way, all the pitfalls you can, the jumping and stuff. It's a really fun game, and it looks really sharp too. Very good graphics. And the story behind it is that it basically takes place 10 years after the events of Streets of Rage 3. Mr. X and his evil crime syndicate have been taken down. So it's been a relatively peaceful time since that happened. But Mr. X's children, the Y twins, have taken up his mantle and are now wreaking havoc on the city. So there's this new threat in the city, and so Axel and his friends, I forget the other names, are tasked with hitting the streets of Rage and raging out on these new enemies. So it's just, you scroll through a collection of levels and eventually face down the Y twins, and you've won the game. And it is super duper fun to play this game. Last up, this was a title I bought on the PS4 for Jimmer around his birthday time for us to play, and he never really got into it, and it took me a while to get started on it, but once I was in, I was hooked, as you will know by my gameplay videos, and it is Madden 23. Football video games. Tecmo Bowl is still probably the greatest football video game ever made, and I find, as back in the old days of Nintendo, Super Nintendo, they were always pretty good because they were simple. Now, as Madden became a big thing and the video game systems got more complex, I found the Madden games matched that, and it was just too much. It was too much. press this to catch the ball, and then press this to do that, and then press, like, there's too much button pressing, instead of just, okay, press X to throw the ball and hopefully your fucking receiver catches it, right? Like, there was just too much going on. They tried to make it too complicated. This game brings that down. They kind of bring it back more towards a more simplistic experience, and it really, really pays off, because I had a lot of fun with this game. You can get, as if you watched my tutorial videos, you know that you can get more complicated with the controls. Like, you can press a different button when you throw the pass to make him throw it high if you have a tall receiver, or low for a short receiver, right? Like, I never really used that because it was just too much to think about. So you can get more complicated if you want to, if you are a really good player. Or if you're shitty like I am, you can just keep it simple, right? And it still works. You can still I won the Super Bowl, so it was all good, right? The main mode in this is franchise mode, which is basically your season mode. But with franchise mode, you can play up to however many seasons in a row and build your franchise, and that particular player that you're controlling, you get to allocate all the points to him and grow that player, right? So that's what I did. I played one season on franchise and won the Super Bowl with the Bears, and I had a ton of fun. And then there's also the ultimate team mode, which is the team builder thing where you compete against people online, I believe. I have no interest in that. Yeah, that's really it. You can play like a local exhibition game with somebody on your couch, and I think you can play just regular online matches, not the ultimate team. I don't know, but I don't really do the online thing, so there's really not a lot of modes available in this game. But what do you need for football, especially other than just like a season mode? That's all you really need. So yeah, the game looks great, plays great. I really enjoyed it. When we first got it though, and I'd heard this from other people, it was really glitchy, it was really slow, really laggy. So I didn't play it right away when we first got it. We tried to play a bit, and it was way too laggy, so we just set it aside and concentrated on other stuff until they did a bunch of updates, and we heard that they were trying to fix that stuff, and eventually they did. So that's when I started playing it regularly, and I really got addicted to it. So if you're looking for a good football game, Madden 23 I think fits the bill. I've heard that it is an improvement on the last number of Madden games that have come out. This one is probably the best. They've gone in the right direction with this one and improved it a lot. So this might be the one to get if you're looking for a new football game, but you're a little gun shy. So anyways, that's it. 3 video games and 2 books, and I promise you this: I'll start working on the next 5 things ASA. Peace. Meow.